Hey guys, this is Bill Dawes, actor comedian, and you are listening to Jim on Bass.
Welcome back to another episode of the Jim on Base Show. For today's very special guest, we have on someone who's one of my favorite comedians. He's been on shows like Law and Order, Criminal Minds. He's also performed on Broadway. Please welcome the great Bill Dawes. Bill, how are you?
Yay, fake fanfare, fake fanfare. I'm good, man. I'm here in Queens, New York.
So it's late there, huh? It's about 9:30 at night.
Yeah. And I just got back from buying, we were just talking about, I just got back from buying a bunch of weed because I didn't realize that weed in New York has been illegal up until like 5 minutes ago. So I'd called my doctor because I didn't have any with me, which is almost like a tragedy in my life. No, I'm not that bad. I'm not like Snoop Dogg stoner style, but I need it for insomnia and a bad back. Anyway, so I didn't have it. I called my doctor. He goes, it was $250 for a medical marijuana card. I'm like, but last year I was like, how do I really want to spend $250 for a medical marijuana card? And then just walking down the street, there was a little dispensary that said, and I walked in there and they had all these pre-rolls of like, do you need, and I felt like I was like getting away with something illegal. And then I went to a second place. They're like, no, it's legal in New York, dum-dum. Like, so it must have happened like 6 months ago, and I didn't know that. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
But I'm not stoned now. Don't worry.
Yeah, you didn't try the product yet, or?
I mean, I think I'm going to during this interview, depending.
You go. Yeah, light up. Do you do the edibles too, or do you just smoke?
I do. I used to be. I used to kind of have like the Elvis Presley diet a lot, which is like uppers in the morning and downers at night. That's what fucking made him like a fatty by the time he was 40. So I would do like Adderall, wake up with Adderall because I have ADD.
Yeah.
And then I would take Ambien at night. And I just thought that was like normal, right? Because of course the big pharma and everything convinces you like it's completely non-addictive, it's safe. So you get like looped into this whole idea that everything that the big pharma does is sort of vetted and smart, and doctors know. And then you realize as you get older that they're all fucking quacks. They want money, and people are just inherently awful and greedy. Because I always thought that like doctors were some professions, like people are just inherently pieces of shit, like lawyers. Like every lawyer is a fucking sociopath. I don't give a fuck. I work for ACLU. Yeah, well, you're just a different type of sociopath. They're just all assholes. I've had so many lawyers I've dealt with that like, hey man, I'm your best friend, and they just really, if you don't have their money right away, they will fucking sue you. Mm-hmm. So but I always thought the doctors had like a different code of ethics. And the more that I've been involved, the more I meet and more I realize that they're just the same. They're the same people.
Yeah, it's almost like everyone's sales in a way. It's just like
yeah. And they're just there's obviously like a big circle of bullshit going on with big pharma and the hospitals and the doctors and the patients, and everyone's trying to make their money and everyone's trying to scam everybody. And it's just so my mom was because she won't watch this. My mom was one of the victims of the kind of opioid crisis. I mean, she's still alive, thank God, but she was, she had one of those doctors who, when she had all of her bad problems, because she was like a drunk Irish woman since age 12, and so her body was just like, and then she had 3 boys, and her body was kind of with a pot. And she had really bad back, and she had pain, so she went to the doctor for I don't know, maybe it was morphine or what's OxyContin, obviously.
Yeah.
And then when it would become ineffective, she goes to the doctor. You go like, well, we're going to double your dose. And that was literally the protocol for opioids in America. You'd go back like, hey, I need it. And the protocol was just to keep doubling the dose until it got to the point where the amount of OxyContin and morphine and different pills and drugs and Vicodin and Xanax, it was absurd. It was levels that your head would explode in 1970 if people told you. Yeah. So, that's what mom was. She had doubling the dose, and of course, is destroying her. And I've been trying to get her into weed, but
she doesn't want to.
So, I gotta tell you, man. Like my dad. So my dad is retired. I make a joke. I go, my dad's a hardcore Trump supporter. My brother's a cop. My mom's name is Karen. It's the honky hat trick. But my dad was like an Eisenhower Republican, and he worked for the Department of Defense. He grew up with a very like sort of religious, strict kind of hurrah idea about America and the government and how Although he's a Republican, he also believed in everything the government fucking told him. He's one of those guys.
Yeah.
So we ate all this. We grew up eating shitty fucking food. That was FDA approved. It was basically poison. And we grew up taking all this bullshit medication that we never. I mean, there was nothing in my life growing up in Northern Virginia that was like organic or healthy. It was all processed government cheese and public schools. So I think that they just bought into the system, you know, and the result is that they just believe in very traditional things that like that weed is bad. Like, you know, I'm sure my dad, when he was a kid, he grew up watching Reefer Madness in school. He was like, oh my God,
It's the gateway drug.
crazy. Yeah, weed will just make you a murderer. It's just so funny because I'm sure that, I mean, I don't know if there's studies on it, but I'm sure if you look at the amount of people that have been murdered, alcohol probably has a much bigger role than marijuana has. I mean, I'd probably say it's although I don't know, because I know that weed is very much involved with, like, you know, gang culture as well. So who knows? But I do think that also is a combination. So right now I don't drink any alcohol at all, just because I don't know why I would. I don't really get the point. I used to do it for, you know, for courage to talk to women and courage to get on stage. And now I think I just got to the point where I was like, it's just better to be afraid. It's just better to be afraid and do it anyway, right? Isn't that what courage is? To be a little bit terrified, have your heart go and do it anyway.
Yeah, get that rush, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
so the point is, I love weed and fuck Big Pharma.
Were you in? You said you're in New York, so are you living there now, or I thought you were maybe in LA now?
No, I live in LA. I'm doing a TV show called The Other Two. It's on HBO. It's a Lauren Michaels show, which is Broadway video. So it's comedy. It's very funny. They're paying me, I think I get like $40 an episode. No, it's it's one of those shows. There's a thing with New York and LA where New York TV, a lot of times they have an idea. It's like a prestige thing to do TV in New York, right? Particularly Lauren Michaels. He's a legendary producer. Yeah. So they are like, when you ask for more money, they're like, no, you're doing a Lauren Michaels show. You can't get more money. You're lucky that we're hiring you.
Yeah.
So I did a couple days on that. And then I booked an NCIS, which is LA show, which means it has all the viewers in the world, all the money in the fucking world. But in terms of prestige, like, no one in the industry is watching it. It doesn't have like that zhuzh like shows like Game of Thrones had or Girls had or Breaking Bad had, which it was just cool to do.
Yeah.
But it pays 3 times more, you know, and you get residuals. So, but I had to leave the other two to do NCIS just for this guest star. And they were like, I can't believe he's going to do that procedural show. Ditch Lauren Michaels. So it's been, there's a whole kerfluffle. And then the other 2 producers want to talk to the NCS producers, and they were like, I'm not fucking talking to them. Fuck them. You know how much money we have? We don't need to talk to fucking Broadway video. So anyway, so I have one more short scene that's been cut down for that, and then I'm back to LA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How does that work when you're on a show somewhere you don't live? Like, do they put you up where you're at right now? Or?
Well, that's a good question. No.
Oh, really? No. Wow.
No. There's something called local hire. So basically the way that I'm kind of like, my sort of 3 stations where I live are basically LA, Austin, and New York. And whenever I audition, because all the auditions now are all self-tape, right? Even the callbacks are like Zoom callbacks, like what we're doing. It used to be you'd go into the room. But I think, and it was kind of changing even before COVID, but actually during COVID, now after COVID, I don't think there's any reason to go back to the waiting room where you sit in a room with like 20 other actors looking at their pages, fucking mad dogging each other and sizing each other up. And you put your ear to the fucking door and hear what they're doing. Like, that was a shitty choice, or I'm going to steal that choice. It was awful. I fucking hated it. Like, I have enough social anxiety as it is. I didn't really need to be dealing with all these fucking male models in a room, like looking like guy's going for a CW show. He's got a funny face. So I love the self tape. It's great. And I think I hope to God, I hope it doesn't go back, because I've been doing really well with the self tape format. So because the self tape, at the end they go, where are you from? You just say wherever the fuck it is. I'm Bill Dawes. Yeah, I live in London, England. I'm auditioning for it. So I've done wherever it is. I say I live in that town.
That's a good
idea. Sometimes, it's almost like kind of like the weed thing with it. Like, just tell your doctor you have a bad back, you're fine. So like I did a local hire in Pittsburgh, and I just had to get like a semi-local address. So someone I knew in Philly gave me an address. Then I did a show in New Orleans. I just had a friend of mine give me an address in New Orleans. And they don't really care. I guess it's just for tax or legal purposes. I mean, I'm basically like admitting to fraud right now, but everyone fucking does it. Who cares? Yeah.
Well, you got the shaved head too. You usually have a little bit longer hair. Is that for a role or?
You're getting all the questions right, man. Yeah. This is
Okay.
for the other two. This is exactly what I was talking about with the prestige thing. So I booked this thing, the other two. I'm playing like a parody of Jeff Bezos, and the character's supposed to be bald.
Ah.
And I was like, okay, well, I'll wear a bald cap because, of course, it's a very broad, very extreme comedy. Like, we're not talking about fucking like an Oscar-winning like small drama. Everything is like really exaggerated. So like, they're gonna care about it. Nope. You guys shave your head bald. I was like, really? Like, yeah. I was like, for $3,000 a week, shave your head bald? Okay, but then it's like, well, of course you have to because that's what we say, and you'd be stupid not to do what we say because we're a prestige show. And it's Lauren Michaels. So of course I shaved my head because in the day I'm a corporate shill. So and actually I dug it. It seems like you kind of keep it pretty short too.
Yeah, a little metro. Every 2 weeks, got to go in, get it trimmed up.
Yeah.
I got it cut today actually.
Oh really? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like it short though. I get, but it's kind of getting weird. What's kind of growing out and
It's all about the fade.
Yeah. I've always wanted to have a mohawk. I want to get a role where I can just have a mohawk.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Then you need like that super glue type gel stuff.
Yeah. I think that'd be really cool. I can't wait. I'm just looking for it. But I guess I'm just gonna start growing out from here on out. Hopefully it'll get past the really awkward part soon. Yeah.
Well, you're also a dad, right? I've seen some pictures of you. It looks like you have a baby daughter.
I have a baby daughter.
Because I was wondering, or how old is she?
She is a year and 7 months now.
Wow.
Yeah. She lives in Austin with her mom.
Okay. Yeah, does that affect you, like maybe roles you pick up or how much you work so you can be more available, or do you kind of have to balance it now?
I mean, ultimately, I think that's a question almost everyone has to deal with when they have, a child, which is, in order to be of use to the child, you have to make money, so you got to work. But if you work too much, you're not around. So it's always that kind of balance of being around. But I also feel like I would never I couldn't imagine a situation where I turned down a movie or TV role just to hang out with my daughter. Because first of all, she's not going to remember anything.
That's true.
and that's for me. So and also I want to be able to make the money so I can pay for all the shit those little creatures need.
Yeah.
And they need a lot. Do you have kids?
No kids. So just taking care of myself, and sometimes I'm like, I don't know. I'm 33 now, so it's kind of like I feel like I'm missing the boat on that maybe. So
no, you're not. You got plenty of time. Owner of the Laugh Factory, Jay Masada, I think he's like 60. God, what is he? He's got to be like 66, 67. He has a baby like in a month.
Wow.
Yeah, I think if you don't have a kid by the time you're like 45, then maybe just be okay, like get your tube side. But
yeah,
plenty of time. 33, you're a baby. You're a baby.
Well, speaking of age and everything, you had a birthday yesterday, right? I felt bad. I was texting you, and you're like, "Hey, it's my birthday today," and I was like, "Oh man, I feel like an asshole."
No. There's no way to. I don't want people to know. I don't even want to admit to myself I have a birthday.
So you don't do anything special? Are you kind of low key about it, or did you do anything last night?
Went to a dinner with some friends.
Oh, cool.
And then I did a little birthday. So I always fucking hate it. They're like, "Happy birthday," the restaurant.
Oh yeah.
Fucking hate it. Do I hate it? I kind of hate it. I don't really like a lot. I don't like too much attention for someone who's into comedy and acting. It's weird. I just don't like being surrounded by people looking at me.
Yeah. So get up on stage and tell jokes,
Yeah, but that sort of ties into that because they get up on stage and then people don't like me. I just start going after them, calling them cunts. Yeah, it's a little bit different because I think when you're on stage, it's like I'm getting paid. This is my opinion, and I don't like I'm doing this to you. I'm not like getting it.
Yeah.
So at the end of the show, if people are applauding, it was the same thing when I was on Broadway. People like I would get like I worked with Tommy Kail, who ended up getting like really famous because he did for two
Hamilton.
reasons. He did Hamilton, and then he also married Michelle Williams.
Mm.
They just had their second kid, I think. But during the curtain call for Lombardi, which I did with him on Broadway, I would just go out there and just do like a little like. I was like, I don't like it. He was like, but it's not for you, narcissist. It's for them. Let them appreciate you. You are robbing them of an experience. So don't make it about you. You think you're being all humble, but you're actually being a selfish piece of shit by not really bowing. And I was like, all right, that's fair. But there's still comics who go out there. They just kind of like walk. They say jokes, and they like walk around like this. They get the applause break. Screw you, stupid.
Yeah.
Tell dumb jokes. Who cares?
Was it pretty cool to perform in Lombardi? You did it at Lambeau Field, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. God damn,
that
you
must
know
have been
that?
Surreal.
Yeah, it was really well. We didn't do the whole thing. We just did a few scenes.
Oh, okay.
On Lambeau Field, and it was during because I'm sure some people know this, some people don't. Maybe people like your crew might know this. I think it's the only, definitely the only NFL team, but it might be the only American professional team that's owned by a co-op.
Mm.
It's owned by shareholders. There is no owner. Like the Cowboys have an owner. Every team has an owner, but the Packers are owned by the community. And I think there's like, God, how many shareholders are? I think it's like 17,000 or something people. All they own a part of the Green Bay Packers. So it was a shareholder meeting at Lambeau Field, and I think there had to be like, I don't know, maybe there were like 20,000 people. Man. No, it wasn't that much. I don't think it was that much. But like 50,000 people in the stadium, and we had a stage, and we went up there and we did like a few scenes. It's very weird. I mean, it's a very different community up there in Green Bay than it is for other cities, because there's not, look, other than the Packers in Green Bay, like there's not a lot going on. You know what I mean? There's a documentary that was produced by Christian McCaffrey, the running back used to be a running back for the Panthers, I guess.
Yeah, he's on the 49ers now. He's in my area.
49ers now? How's he doing? Is he?
Oh, he's doing great. Yeah, tearing it up.
Great. And he executive produced this thing called it's the Unicorn Town. Mm. It's a documentary about this professional football team in Germany, and like a teeny ass bratwurst smelling town in Germany, but they like import, professional players who were in the NFL or want to be in the NFL, or step to the NFL, and it's their whole culture. Like everyone goes, the entire town shows up to these freaking games. It's like one of the most important cultural events when this. But football in general is not a sport that Germans really give a shit about. Yeah. But in this particular town, it's fucking enormous, and they all go and they bring their kids. It's like, so I kind of feel like the same way with Green Bay. Like it's bigger than the game. It's just part of the culture. Like if you grew up in Green Bay, I don't care if you're a lady or whatever. You're part. Football is, you get into the football because it's where you hang out and meet your friends and tailgate. So it's kind of cool. Like it kind of made me. I like that a lot. Like I grew up in outside Virginia, and so Washington D.C., the Washington Redskins, the Washington Commanders. Now I guess that was our team, but that was different because that was that's such a metropolitan area. There was no like community of Redskins from Virginia, So I kind of dig that about Lambeau. We get to walk around the Hall of Fame, and we tried out all the rings, and a lot of the Packers came to the game. Tom Brady and Giselle came to the game.
Oh wow!
Got some pictures with them. She tried to grab my ass, inappropriate.
Who, Tom or?
Yeah. So it was cool. That was a good experience.
Yeah. Well, speaking of football, I saw a picture of you the other day with Jeremy Piven, you and Baker Mayfield, I think, right?
Oh yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, so I toured with Jeremy a bunch. I kind of like we're trying to craft his hour. He's working to. I think this year we're going to make his hour finally come out.
Oh, cool.
Because he's been obviously a very renowned actor for a long time. He started doing stand up. I think seriously he started like about 6 years ago. He started really getting seriously into it, and And in the past year, and whenever you start as a stand-up, the way you start initially is with the fun of doing it, but there's not a lot of, how do I put it? Depending on who you are, sometimes like your originality can kind of suffer sometimes because you just kind of want to do stuff that's fun and stuff that works, and kind of it becomes sort of based on a lot of stuff you've seen. It's not stealing, but you just kind of like, you got to find your own voice, your own style. I think when I first started in like 2005, I was like, I have videos of it. I don't look like I'm stealing, but there's definitely a part of me where like, that guy liked Dane Cook, didn't he? You know what I mean? Because I'm doing the weight. Like, I can't tell how many comics and the knots and the early knots did a bit about like, what if you're a deer and you just were a deer and you're in the woods, just some shit like that. So, and of course you find yourself. So I think that Jeremy's kind of he's finally at a point where his voice is very unique because his story is very unique. Like, he can tell jokes that no one else can from his point of view, from the point of view of a very famous actor, household name, becoming a stand-up comic at age 50 or whatever it is, or late 40s. So that's where we're trying to hone together a good hour special where all the jokes and all the stories aren't just stories that aren't jokes that other comics could say. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of jokes that people have, a lot of jokes I have, that I'll do them. I'll go, this joke is so funny. I'm going to love this joke. This is my joke. And then like 6 months later, you hear another comic doing it. And then you go, did he steal that? And the question is like, if it's such a personal story to you and they sold it, then you can get mad because you're like, you stole my fucking story.
Yeah.
But if it's just a funny turn of phrase, you kind of you gotta be like, nah, good game. You got it. I mean, I've had famous comics steal material from me like in front of my face, and I couldn't do anything about it. I'm not going to say the name of the comic because this one in particular has some other bigger legal issues going on. Anyway, so it's there's a lot of like borrowing and stuff like that, and then I think when we start, it just happens. It's just sometimes unconsciously, or you'll say a joke, you'll come up with a joke. Like here's one of the first jokes that came with through COVID, 2021. This was like March or May, maybe March, April, maybe April. I was like, oh man, I sneezed in Whole Foods and people like freaked out. You can't even sneeze. Used to oh no, I cough. I say I coughed. Sorry, I coughed in Whole Foods because I smelled like a Tom's deodorant when I coughed. People freaked out that you can't cough. Used to cough to cover a fart. Now you have to fart to cover a cough. And ladies, I know you don't fart. Maybe you queef to cover a sneeze. That was the joke. It's silly, right? So far, and then you'd hear things about like, oh, you can't cough anymore. And then later I heard some just similar tweet. And then about a year ago, a YouTuber or TikToker had a guy say that joke. Not that just used to cough, cover, fart. I had fart, cover, cough on as a joke to his other YouTubers, and they're all like mocking what a hacky joke it is. But meanwhile, it's a funny joke that has just been hacked. Yeah. And now they're trying to get views off of a funny joke, but trying to pretend like they're above it. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, yep.
Try to be ironic. Look at this hacky joke. But meanwhile, people are looking, oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's not hilarious. It's fucking hacky. And then people are like, oh, this guy's still, at that point, I was like, you know what, man? You got to get rid of it, because when people do, and I'd stopped doing it for a while anyway, because there's certain jokes you do, you're like, oh, this joke is going to become an easy joke. And sure enough, it was. It's just too easy a joke for people not to start doing something similar to that.
Yeah.
So I think the comics that are really good are the comics who write jokes like that. And when someone else does something similar or the same joke, they go, I guess I won't do that joke anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you have to constantly challenge yourself and lose your babes. Another joke I used to do that's such a dumb joke. That would get like really big laugh, and still to this day will get a laugh if I ever do it. But I hate doing it. I want to kill myself every time I do it. I go, if there's like a black girl, I go, hey girl, you like white guys? You ever put on rich? You ever got wet for a weedable? You know what they say? Once you go white, your vagina stays tight. And then they go, oh. And I go up to a white guy, and I was like, once you go pale, you never have to post bail. High five. I go the high five a white guy, and then they always try to high five you. I'm like, you racist piece of shit. Why are you high five me that? That's always fun. It will always work in any crowd. But there's a part of me that's like, ugh. And then sure enough, some comic, like, um, I'd started doing like maybe 2006 or seven. And I was so proud of it at the time. And some comic that, I forget his name. He's a nice enough guy, but I was getting calls like, this guy's doing what you go, what you're trying to say joke. And I was like, I'm not like I'm proud of that joke. But I reached out to him and said, hey, listen, man, like, just, people are reaching out to me. I'm not saying you stole it. And, but also here's a video of me doing it in my first year of comedy in like 2005. And here's the whole joke. And like, it's been on the Laugh Factory website, as a matter of fact. So if you want to do it and you do it at the Laugh Factory, they're going to ban you. Not because of me, but they'll just be like, the staff will ban you if they see you do that. So you should probably lose it, but do whatever you want. Which I think is really the only way you can handle people who either are doing your similar joke, because if you accuse someone of stealing, they're not gonna be like, so you're accusing someone of sexual misconduct. Well, that's lies. These women are all lying. It's like, no one admits to it. No one goes, you got me.
Yeah.
It's like, no one admits to stealing a joke. They go, I mean, it's such an easy, hacky joke. I just thought that anyone ever would do it. Okay, this is hacky, don't do it.
Yeah.
I think his reaction was like, it's kind of a hacky joke. I'm like, okay, don't do it. They stop. So whatever.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, how'd you meet Jamie Kennedy? I've had him on the show, and he's one. He's one of my favorite guys. I know you helped write for his Comedy Central special, right?
Yeah. One thing I'll say about Jamie that's really cool is that I was his feature, and I was helping him write, and you do that with a lot of comics sometimes when you're featuring for bigger comics, and sometimes they just don't want to give you credit. But Jamie was always really good about giving me credit, which was surprising because I wrote for some bigger comics. Like, don't tell anybody that you wrote my joke. I'm like, oh, okay, fine. But how did I meet Jamie? I think I think this was like my first year in comedy. It was 2006. It was at the New York Laugh Factory, and I had auditioned for Jamie Masada in LA. He had seen me in a play in New York. Can't believe Jamie got dragged to a play, but thought I had something. So he said, buddy, I want to make you like the house MC at the New York Laugh Factory. So I was like the MC there, and he came there to headline. And there was a few years that club was really hot. And I was just kind of a fan of his, not so much from Malibu's Most Wanted, which I thought I get people like it, but I think and actually looking back at it now, it's kind of a funnier movie now than I think, to me, than when it first came out. But Jamie Kennedy Experiment, I still think is fucking amazing.
Super underrated.
I mean, I keep telling Jamie, you gotta find a way to bring that back, man, because the difference between Jamie Kennedy Experiment, and if you guys haven't seen it, like, I definitely recommend. It's got to be streaming somewhere, right?
There's a bunch of clips on YouTube too.
Yeah, because the difference between that and something like Punked is like Ashton Kutcher, because there's similar things. They're kind of like prank shows. The difference is like Jamie was like fully immersed in it, and the pranks involved like heavy prosthetics, makeup, characters, voices. I mean, he really made these people believe that he was 18 different characters that would and Jamie also has this real, I don't want to say the word fearless, but he loves uncomfortable shit. And this shit would get so weird and uncomfortable. And you watch it, you just cringe. And he just stays in the pocket with it. It's really remarkable. I mean, I think I went back and looked at some of the Jim Carrey Experiment stuff like a couple of years ago. Was this? And I was like, fuck, it's so good because it's so uncomfortable. And the way he'll just keep a joke and a prank going for so long. Yeah. And he won't break character. And sometimes, I mean, look, a lot of this shit is pretty, I mean, like let's be honest, he does blackface. He does. He plays a woman. I think her name is literally like Shaniqua or something. He does a whole, but the way I look at it, it's art. Yeah. It's not, he's playing a character. Right? It's not black. He's playing a literal character for a TV show. How is that blackface?
No, he's great. Well, one thing.
Good.
Well, I was gonna say one thing that I like about him and you is you both kind of remind me of each other in a way where you say what's on your mind, and you have really good creative jokes. You don't shy away from. I don't know if I should say this or not. So I'm just wondering, do you ever get any hate like in person or maybe DMs from people? I figured you had some good stories, maybe.
Oh my god. I mean, I definitely don't get. I'm trying to think like the whole have I've had like I don't know if I've had death threats. I've had some threats before, but once you've had a couple threats before, you just kind of, it doesn't. Now I'm a black belt jujitsu. I'm like, go ahead,
Yeah.
go ahead, you can threaten me as much as you want. Um, also, I've never been attacked on stage. There was ever. I think part of the reason is also because my stuff probably skews a little bit towards men. You know, so I think men are kind of nice. Good point. But women, yeah, I'll definitely make a show and I'll see women just like just fold their arms, and then sometimes he'll just double down. I'll just be me, and then I kind of go, ah, man. Then I feel bad because I don't want people to spend money and go out and have a miserable time and hate me. I really don't.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those comics who's like, fuck with audience things. Like I want them to like me, but I also want them to be people who like to be challenged and like to be slightly offended. Like, I mean, look, man, you're a firefighter, right? And I was in New York during September 11th, and that's, I don't know if you knew any of the firefighters who died then. You're too young for that, obviously, but you know how many firefighters died in September 11th, and giving your life for something like that, like how tragic that is. I remember like 6 months after September 11th, or a year after, Daniel Tosh was at the Laugh Factory. He goes, "Hey guys, can we talk about the good things about September 11th? The good things that came out of it." And it's this Hollywood Laugh Factory Club, which is historically and notoriously a very like woke, tight fucking crowd. They don't have like the dirty, raunchy, seedy vibe that Comedy Store has. They're not as corporate as Improv. So they're very kind of like more Beverly Hillsy. They used to be a little bit wokey. So and attractive models and shit. So and people were just like, what? And he was like, go on. He goes, because before September 11th, you had to drive your girlfriend to the airport, you had to park, you had to walk through the gate, you had Sinbun, you got diabetes, you had to wave to the plane going off the tarmac. Now all you gotta do is roll up the curb, open the door, and throw it to the fucking curb. That's worth at least one tower, guys. Not two. What are you, maniac? But one tower, come on, it's worth it. And that was like 6 months after the attacks 9/11. And I remember like being so shocked by that joke. Now that joke doesn't have the same weight, right? But at the time, it was fucking like my mouth was on the floor, and I literally came up and I was like, "Can I open for you? Can I?" Like, no, actually, I don't think it was a new comedy yet. I think it was just kind of like, man, I'm such a fan because I would watch Laugh Factory before I started. That'd be like 2002, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So I think that it's important to do things that make you feel. If I say something in my head, I write something like, "Oh my God," it makes me feel uncomfortable. Then I'm like, I gotta say it. Not always.
Well,
you joke like what I say. I go like I do. Like this joke always makes me laugh when I say it for myself, but I know I go. I didn't like the masks, not because they were like, oh, I can't breathe, just because I didn't know if someone's wearing a mask, I couldn't tell if they were hot or not. I'm like, guys, don't judge me. I feel like you're. I'm only saying when I met a woman with a mask, I didn't know if I needed to treat her with respect. And then people kind of get like, you tell people are uncomfortable, but it makes me feel like it gives me something, gives me like fuel. And I do that and say, hey, listen, before I hold this door open for you, you're gonna need to peel down that mask a little bit so I can tell if you're pretty or if you're a feminist. And people get so pissed off at that joke for obvious reasons. And I go, ooh, some bitches really didn't like that joke, huh? Some of these bitches didn't like that joke. And I'm like, guys, I'm sorry. I apologize. I know you can't use the word. You know who really hates the word bitches the most? Cunts. It's like my favorite sequence because it goes back and forth. But like, I'm sorry, but boo, boo, boo. And I think that's what I like doing whenever I can find moments to, and I don't have a lot of them, whenever I can find moments to bring in an audience one way and then really like turn hard so they feel something completely different. I mean, there's a clip going around on YouTube. Lucy K is like, this is my favorite joke. This is a Dan Adderman joke, and he's such a great writer. But I don't have jokes like this. But I look at this where he talks about like just a joke, and no context joke. That's a joke. A middle school teacher, a medical sex ed teacher. So in middle school, he comes into class and he has a banana and a condom. And he goes, okay, guys, today I'm going to teach you the proper way to put on a condom. And the reason I have the banana is because I can't get hard on an empty stomach. And it's such a great joke. And like, you're never going to see that fucking joke coming. So every once in a while you see a joke, you're like, fuck, man. Like, because even like really sophisticated, like I feel like I'm a pretty sophisticated consumer of comedy, and I'm a pretty sophisticated movie watcher as well. So if I ever watch a movie and like I'm ahead of it most of the time. Like I watched a movie like the Woman King, right? Which got like 99% Rotten Tomatoes and blah, blah, blah. Da, da. But it's also a very obvious tropey movie. Like everything in that movie is like, okay, the rebellious girl, she's gonna be the hero, she's gonna do this and save it. And you're like 10 steps ahead the whole time. But then every once in a while you'll see the movies where like, I know, like The Menu that just came out with Brady. Yeah. I mean, I was so bored the first 20 minutes because I was like, oh, this is a pretentious movie written by a pretentious person making fun of how pretentious people are. But it's just pretentious. And then that twist, that turn that happens, you're just like, wait, what the fuck is this?
Then you're glued, you know?
And then you're like, and then for the rest of the ride, you're like, and also Ray Fiennes, probably the best actors, of this generation. So stuff like that, we're not going to actually get surprised. So if a joke can surprise me or a movie can surprise me, I'm all in. Mm-hmm. And at that point, it doesn't matter if it's literally like the most offensive joke in the world. I mean, I could say that as a white man, obviously, like we can't really get offended by anything. Like what could be offensive? There's no word or thing that will offend them. If someone says a joke that involves like a good joke that involves the N-word, man, I mean, or a good joke that involves rape, if it's good enough, if that joke is crafted well enough, then I think nothing is off limits. So this whole concept, you can't do jokes with this, can't do jokes. Well, yeah, if they're bad, but the good thing about comedy is it's a self-regulating system. So if you are out there trying to be super edgy, saying all this racist, sexist, shitty stuff, and it's not funny, then no one's going to book you. So what difference does it make?
Yeah.
But if you're a brilliant comic, if you're Louis C.K. and you have a joke that involves the N-word, which he does, well, he's also probably the best writer that's ever existed as a comic. So let him go.
Well, when you're having a good show up there and you're feeling it, and maybe you have an early show and a late show. I saw Jay Farrow the other day, and he tore it up. I had to go to the early show, and he was like, man, if this is any indication if I should film my special here in San Francisco or not, man, like I'm ready. And then he was so pumped up, and I was just wondering, what does he do in between sets? So what do you do to maybe bring yourself down, or I don't know, just
cocaine, just straight up pure oblivion. No, I mean, honestly, that's a challenge, and particularly the older you get, it becomes harder to kind of. I do, I have shows in Vegas coming up in February, and I do like 45 minutes a set, which is very long. But we have two shows, 8:30 and 10:30, so they already start late. And sometimes you'll have a killer first show that's packed, and the second show will be light. I think part of it is remembering like stand-up comedy doesn't have to be muscular. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be. You don't have to go out there and give them a show. You can just fucking go on stage. If you're feeling tired and fucked up, and you can go up there and literally be like, I really don't want to be here, guys. This is like my community service starting now. Like, what the fuck? And sometimes the honesty can help people. I think that's better than just phoning in a performance that has no organic life at all. Like you hit a tape recorder, hit play. And I've been there before, and I hate myself. I would rather go up there and just address the fact that like the first show was great, and I'm fucking tired. I don't want to be here. I contemplated snorting some cocaine, and I wish I had Adderall, and like whatever. So I think that the X factor in comedy that people kind of forget about, and this is part of the problem with like specials, is that what I see the purpose of stand-up comedy, when I see stand-up comedy really is I see it's like a conversation between you and the audience, right? And that involves, it doesn't mean have them yelling out, but that involves an energetic back and forth. And when you make that as a special on a screen, it's completely devoid of that. It's all manicured and put together. And you see people like Bill Maher, and you're like, yeah, I'm all right with Bill Maher. And he's an older man, so good for him. He's still doing comedy, but like you see his last special, and he's so clearly like, and then I'll go, all right, you're looking at your teleprompter, da 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 da,
Mm.
teleprompter, and it's kind of like, to me that feels not like a cheat because he's like 60 whatever doing a special, but at the same time, like I don't like that. I like things to have a feeling that anything can fucking happen in a room, and I feel that specials, the way they're curated, produced right now, that element's gone. And I've always wanted to make a special that had a looser quality, which is why I responded to like Gerard Carmichael's Rothaniel special, which was interesting because he was kind of, there's literal dialogue back and forth with, although him coming out of the closet is like, now, really, buddy? Okay. But it's a brilliant special.
Well, I had Ian Edwards on too recently, and he had a fun story about working at like a burger joint, and a customer came around to the drive-through and said, "Hey, you're pretty funny. You should try comedy." And he said that's what kind of nudged him that direction. So
Oh, wow, that's amazing. He's
yeah,
great, man. He's
yeah, he's
awesome.
awesome. Did you have anyone kind of encourage you, or what was the family like, or maybe friends? Were they always like, "Oh, you're funny," or how did you get into this path?
Like, and again, and yeah, he's like a real writer. He's a
Mm.
real brilliant writer. He kind of like, I think his foray into comedy, a lot of ways was writing. He wrote for the Boondocks, which I used to love. And you can hear his writing. And he's a decent performer too, but performance isn't like necessarily his foray into comedy. It's more
Mm.
like his thoughts, his writing, which is probably the better way to get into comedy. But for me, I was just always a performer. I was an actor first. I was in a dance troupe. I was a go-go dancer. I was a yoga instructor. When I was in college, I was in a hip hop dance company at Princeton, so it wasn't super edgy. But I was a founding member of a company called Body Hype, and so I just was, and again on stage a lot, and I was very physical. Like I was an athlete and a dancer, so everything was like very very physical. So I could get a lot of laughs when I was dancing by just doing, like, I would do parodies of Vanilla Ice or Mark Wahlberg, or just like think like Jim Carrey, right? Just sort of grotesque stuff. I was a break dancer. I'd do crazy pratfalls off roofs and shit like that. So that's how I would get attention and love from my peers. No, but that's how it would just be doing crazy, goofy, physical, gnarly shit that other people couldn't do. And I would do like, just like, hey, like fall into this bucket at this restaurant and like pretend like you can't stand up. And I would just do that. And no one knew I was acting because I was good at it. So I actually, when I was in graduate school for acting, I can, or maybe I don't know if it was graduate school or probably when I was undergrad, I looked into Jacques Lecoq, which was the clown school in France. It's like a very famous clown school. And I was like, oh, I would love to, not like a clown like with a red nose, but
Mm.
along the lines of like Charlie Chaplin or Buster Keaton or Harold Lloyd, stuff like that. I loved like, or who's the guy who did this Singing in Rain? I used to watch that all the time.
Mm.
O'Connor, something, O'Connor, Donald O'Connor, whatever. I just love that shit. I love the ability to just like do crazy, funny, physical, dangerous stuff. Like Molly Shannon in the early days of SNL when she was like, would fly into fucking chairs. Like you're like, people are getting hurt. That's why someone's talking about this play last night called The Play That Goes Wrong on Broadway, which is about a play where everything starts falling apart and people fall. And like, but it's Broadway. So the way they hit their head, they're like, oh, I hit my head. You're like, motherfucker, didn't hit your head. Hit your fucking head. If you're not gonna almost die, don't do the fucking joke. So I was coming off of that. So that's what we're getting. So when I see someone like Dane Cook, before I even thought about doing comedy, I'm like, oh, this guy's like doing wacky physical shit, and he's jumping around the stage. He didn't necessarily, his jokes weren't necessarily the best written jokes in the world, but he was just having a lot of fun. It seemed like doing animals and characters and shit. So I was like, oh, I like that. So I had a friend of mine who's a lot more of an intellect than me, and he kind of had been doing it for a while in New York, and he told me I should try it. And it was like an open mic. I think the place was called Surf Reality in Lower East Side, and you put the name of Bucket, and I just had a bit that was like, I don't remember what the bit was. It was something, but it was very physical. My first few bits were all very physical, and like different ways different races respond to women on the sidewalks of New York. It just sounds hacky already. How you spoon your girlfriend to sleep, the way to get a girl to give you BJ when she's resistant, which is obviously very problematic. So I wouldn't do that joke again. But it was all very and I think the first show I went, I just fucking bombed. I was like, I'm just gonna wing it because I'm funny. I'll wing it. And I went up there and I just tried to do this. I was like, kicking the air like Dane Cook and doing dumb shit and thought that I was just winning them on my physicality charm, and I just fucking bombed. And I was like, oh. And it made me realize two things. One is that bombing isn't so bad. Because when you think about bombing and you haven't bombed, it's literally like the worst thing ever. And then when you actually bomb, it sucks, but the feeling goes away like the next day. I mean, maybe a really bad bomb can linger for like a couple days, but you don't really hold on to it for that long. But I remember as a child, I watched that movie Fame. And he was like this stand-up comic who's trying to be famous, and he had a big industry showcase, and he was saying these jokes that were killing in front of the industry, and they were just bombing, and it was like you were like you couldn't imagine anything worse than that. So I think a lot of people get scared off because of the bombing. But I bombed that first time, and I was like, A, it's not that bad. B, I don't want to bomb again. So I just kind of started practicing all this shit. I started literally doing stuff where you practice in the mirror. But for me, my foray into comedy, because I was never really, I had like bad vocal constriction, speech impediments, and a bad list and stuff. So my foray into comedy was not language and any linguistic like a dexterous tongue. It was all just like physical shit. So that's when I got in, like around 2005. And yeah, and it definitely worked. I mean, it's definitely a good cheat code to have. It's like being a comic who can also sing or play guitar. It's a great way to foray into it, a great way to like a cheat code to start. So that was my first couple of years, just me doing the worm on stage, breakdancing, handsprings and shit like that, and staying in my head and all sorts of shit. I mean, I remember the one show I did. Fuck, it's so embarrassing. It was like, someone said, it's gonna be more fun than a barrel of monkeys. I was like, does a barrel of monkeys sound fun? If you walk down the street, see a barrel of monkeys, I was probably being very Dane Cookie, and I put the stool upside down, the legs are up, and you open a barrel of monkeys, the monkeys would fucking grab you, and so I put my head in the stool, it was upside down, my legs. They would try to rape you, they're shitting on your face. I don't remember, but it was a joke that I stuck to for like a good my barrel monkey joke the first year, just because I'd be upside down with my head in the stool doing monkey sounds. And then you start to realize that like, no, that won't get you a fucking Comedy Central special. So I started focusing more, and then the next step is sometimes you do jokes that are just a little bit broad, gross, and they get a reaction. And then you try to make yourself, then the industry says, hey, you guys should do jokes about this. And then you try to be more erudite and make them more family friendly and fun and clean. And then you start realizing like that's boring to you. And you kind of go back to the same shit, which is like raunchy and physical, which is what I do now. Bill Burr said at one point, he goes, you start comedy for one reason. And then all the powers that be and all the forces, all the clubs, they kind of like tell you and force you to go in this one direction. And then there's a point where you go, actually, the reason I did it was this thing. But now you have more craft, so you can integrate a little bit better. But it's also something that I still figure out. Like sometimes I still go, fuck, I would do a show like I was being way too dirty that show, or I was doing a show that was way too mean to women. You know what I mean? So I go back and forth. I go, I guess go back to being nice. Yeah.
Well, the Gotham Comedy Club, that's kind of your home club in New York, right? So
yeah, it was for a while.
What do you like about it?
Well, I like the fact that those guys are great. Chris Zilli and Steve Zilli, they're great, and they're dudes, you know. And I think they like comics that can command a stage and are physical. You know, they don't like just some of these talking head, you know, like. And this is nothing to shit on JFL, but I remember the booker for JFL who got fired. What's his name? The guy with the enormous fucking head. I forgot his name. Jeff Singer.
Oh, okay.
Jeff Singer. what used to be head, and he was just his hero is Woody Allen.
Mm.
So his idea of comedy was very kind of like urban and intellectual and smart. And it wasn't like he did like bad comics, but when he was booking for the Laugh Factory, all the comics that he would book would be comics who had jokes that had tons of wordplay and were almost very mathematical and also very packaged, because to do jokes like that, they're that logically driven, I think involves a lot of like literal writing and literal, like, this is the joke, and practicing and recording. And there's nothing wrong with that, but sometimes it can feel a little inorganic and not necessarily authentic. So he would book these people, and they would work at the Long Beach Laugh Factory, which, I mean, you got MS-13 gang members there. You got the biggest swath of people. You got people going to Yale next to people going to jail. It's a very interesting, and I feel like for me, I want everyone to be involved, so I'm not going to try to be too pedantic in what I'm saying. I'm not going to try to be too gross in what I'm saying. But these guys would just show up and they would just bomb. They just won JFL as like a fresh face. But they would go up there, they'd fucking eat a dick because they just had no way to relate to, 14 cholos in a room. I think you got to relate to everybody. And sometimes they can get like a little like, fuck the audience. It's not about the audience. It's about me and what I have to say in my brilliant mind. It's like, shut up, you're a comic. We are, and the thing I've come to recently is like, we are clowns. People, that's a critique I've had about me. Oh, Bill's a clown. Yeah, I'm a clown. I'm a clown. What are you, dude? You're a fucking intellect. Go suck a dick. You're not an intellect. You're a fucking comic.
Yeah.
We're the court jesters of the world. You're not changing the world, stupid. Shut up. I get so fucking mad when comics think they're important, or when they think they're cool.
Well, it's funny because you have the perfect balance. Like you said, you have a couple degrees. You went to NYU and Princeton, and then you're also a comedian. So it's kind of like you're the most well-rounded guy in the room, probably.
I mean, I could definitely talk about a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, I want to talk about stuff that is very that makes me uncomfortable and that makes me laugh. And usually that stuff that's pretty, like, if I'm writing something, if I'm stoned and I'm writing something, I go, oh my god, I'm like, I got to do this joke.
Yeah, do you get a lot of your jokes from being stoned, or how does it come to you normally?
Um, I just started smoking weed in the past 5 years.
Mm.
I wasn't one of these. I'm a Johnny come lately to weed. Um, and I don't know if it's made my comedy, because a lot of stuff I write on weed, they're really hard to perform because they're very intricate and you gotta lay them out. And I think sometimes they're detail oriented in a way that my tongue isn't able to kind of make happen in a way that's super fast and palatable for a bunch of drunk idiots. So, I think I did a joke. Oh, I said a joke recently that I wrote. So I did something recently. It was like I did it in like November. I think I never want to do. I jerked off sad. It's just like really. It was just. I forget what the joke was, but I was like, even my dick was like, dude, we can just cuddle. We don't have to do this. And I remember when I wrote like my dick saying, we can just cuddle. We don't have to do this. It made me laugh. And I knew that would get a laugh from the audience when I did. And sure enough, it did. So if it's going to make me laugh when I'm stoned, I'm like, it'll probably make the audience laugh. The rest of the joke I don't remember, but I remember the joke of my dick being like, bro, we can just cuddle if you want. Just made me laugh. And just the idea of jerking off sad is just funny to me.
Well, when you are trying out new material, and maybe it's because Jamie Kennedy had said when he has new stuff, he's gonna bomb for a while. You have to like figure it out or kind of craft it as you go. Do you ever have like greatest hit type jokes on reserve to like, okay, now I'll throw some out when things maybe aren't going the way you want, or
Once you go white, your vagina stays tight. Yeah, I'd say I have like 10 bits I have that I feel a little bit I don't want to say embarrassed about, because they're my jokes and original stuff, but they're definitely like they're pretty low hanging fruit. Like the first year of COVID, when I was doing like use the cough, go fart, fart, go cough, quick, go sneeze, I would start feeling guilty about that joke because it's a fart joke. And it didn't necessarily have much personal connection. I would never I would never fart to cover a cough. I would never cough to cover a fart, or whatever, fart to cover a cough. I would never do that. So it's not even real.
Yeah.
It's just a joke. So I feel like what was the question exactly? Was it in terms of like new? Oh yeah, like yeah. I have bits that I had a bit about getting head in an alley from from a transsexual person, or may or may not have been trans, but the wig moved. And I was like, oh, I freaked out. I was out of there the second I came. I was like, the worst part about that joke is that joke, it really happened. It did.
Oh, really?
And I go, yeah. And I go, I probably got BJ from dude, but could have been a lot worse. I could have got no BJ. Come on, guys. A bro job is better than no job. So the tag was, a bro job is better than no job. And when I started, that was my first t-shirt, I think, a bro job is better than no job. But when I started that joke, I think that was my first closer in 2000. First closer I really loved was in 2009 or something, 10. And that was my closer for a few years. And then I just kind of retired it because it felt like there was a lot of things about it that felt wrong. One is I had my hands like on an imaginary head for the joke, which just feels kind of aggressive for a long time. I'll tell you what it was. It was one of those jokes where like there's lots of great jokes in it. And I combined it with going to England, which didn't happen in England, but the joke I go to England, so I combined all these jokes about British people and this and that. It felt a little, although I'm the victim of the joke in some way, it felt a little aggressive, just with my hands by my crotch a lot. And then also at the time, I think that joke, when I first started, that joke was like, well, he did what? Ironically, now when you do it, you're like, who cares? You got a blowjob from a transsexual person. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, there's nothing even edgy about it anymore. Like, can you believe it, guys? I got a blowjob from a transsexual person. I mean, look, it was a woman. It was a black woman in a wig. I think I'm sticking with that.
Yeah.
But so I think that I kind of stopped doing that because I would have these amazing sets, and that would be my closer, and I would never get like an applause break, and I would never get like, it would never result in a standing ovation or anything. I was like, and then someone told me that I think you kind of like turn people off when you do that bit. I think it comes off as a little aggressively misogynistic and less charming than you think it does. So I was like, and I kind of, the minute someone told me that, I was like, bye, gone, not going to do it. Because you got to remember that like I'm a 6 foot tall, 200-pound man in an audience with people with 50% women usually, who don't want to have the presence of a guy like humping a stool or getting a mimed BJ. I mean, not like you can't do that, but there's a certain way you got to kind of modulate stuff to figure out like you want people to laugh and also feel comfortable, not feel creeped out by you. And I still struggle. I mean, every once in a blue moon, I'll bring that back. Once a blue moon, I go, this, because it's got so many great jokes. If you ever, I could send you a link to it. Yeah. So I probably have about 5 or 6 kind of like 3-minute bits. They'll kind of always gonna work. Yeah. But then I don't really like to do those.
Well, how does your family take your comedy? Because I think you had a bit. Are your brothers doctors or something like that? Like, yeah. Okay. Were they okay? Were they okay with you doing comedy, or do they want you to do a certain career path?
No, because I have 2 brothers that are doctors and who are married to doctors and stuff like. And their life has challenges. They have financial challenges. They have health challenges. They have all sorts of relationship challenges. There's all sorts of life is hard, no matter what you do. So I think they kind of and my brothers are also. I'm lucky because my brothers are cool as shit. Like, they really are. They've never been anything but supportive. If I have a show in their town, they show up. They bring friends. You know what I mean?
Oh, cool.
And they love watching me perform. My stuff is a little dirtier, a little more blue than is comfortable for my mom and dad. Bill, you're so funny. Why do you have to be so dirty? Mom, it's funny to me. So I think it makes my parents, a little bit uncomfortable, but they'll still come sometimes. When I open for Tim Allen, they came laughed at that. And then also they're there. I try to make it a little less. I won't do that alley head joke from the training. Transsexual person.
Yeah.
Sorry. Transgender person. Jesus Christ. Transgender. Did I say transsexual? Fuck.
We'll edit it out. Don't worry. Yeah.
Yeah. Transsexual is not what you say. Transgender. So, yeah, they're cool. They're cool. That they're pretty. They've never told me to quit. Just whenever I make money, they're like, oh, you made money doing it? Cool.
Well, speaking of a serious role you've done, you were in a short, right, called Beautiful Violence a couple years back. And I saw that won a Cannes Best Duo Award. You guys won a bunch of awards for it. What was that like? And how can people see it? Because I was looking for it and I couldn't find a way to watch it.
I man, it's got to be on YouTube. I mean, look, full disclosure, and this is not me shitting on it because it was great. It was just like we shot during like fall 2020, like the height of COVID, and or maybe it was the height of whatever. It was like things were fucking bad. So, but he wanted to shoot something, and he's had this idea for a script. I'd worked with Joey Medina in a project that Adam Hunter, who's my buddy, did called Pinned. And he was like, oh, Bill's not right for this role in Pinned. But then I auditioned for him. He goes, okay, I can play this role. He goes, Bill's not right for this role in Beautiful Violence. I auditioned for him. He's like, oh, fuck, this guy can play this role. So I ended up I did this video that got very viral that you may have seen called How a White Man Says the N-Word to a Black Man.
I think I've seen it in the past.
Because it's probably gotten, aggregate and the web has probably gotten 200 million views, I think on Facebook alone, it got like 80 million. And then the Laugh Factory website, I think it's like at almost 20 million or something.
Yeah, if it's on there, I've definitely seen it then.
And it's like two black guys and me. And I go like, he goes, hey, give me my money. I go, hey, why are you tripping? I point to Eric Blake and everybody goes, he says N-word. So he gets to say it for me. He's my proxy N-word guy. And it got very viral. It didn't result in a dime of money for me or anyone else, but me and Eric became friends. And then so when I had my podcast, I interviewed Eric Blake and I learned his story. His story was so fucking amazing. He was like a true thug, like a true, like he was running like a cartel out of Compton, this guy. And he told me his story. He literally was like, when crack was happening in Compton, he was like, why are we doing this stuff that kills the black people? Let's fucking take it to the white neighborhoods. So he branched out to all first person to take cocaine, crack to all these different from Compton. And he was doing really fucking well. I ended up getting like in a sting by the feds, went to jail, came out. He's like a real gangster, So many people try to be hard and try to be tough. And there's something about Eric. If you look at the N-word video, if you watch it again, you can just tell there's something about this guy that's just fucking scary. Like he's the best dude. He's married with 4 kids. He's a fucking awesome dude. But like, man, I could just tell there's something when I'd watch that N-word video, there's something way that he would just stand and say, as long as like this guy's killed someone before, you know what I mean? Or definitely threatened. And so we were looking for like, it's a similar idea. I want to get killed. So I go and I start screaming the N-word to this black guy. So he'll kill me so my wife can get insurance money because I'm dying of cancer. I can't do it from suicide. And I don't want to put her through, chemo and for a terminal cancer that's not going to be solved. So I want someone to kill me and so she can get all the money. It's an interesting concept. And then they were looking for people. They wanted Alonzo Bowden, because he wanted size. I think Craig Robinson, he wanted size. I was just like, I love Alonzo. I love Craig, but like, I'm telling you, man, Eric is like legitimately like a fucking gangster with a heart of gold, which is what the part demanded. So Eric had never acted before. Never had an acting, never TV, never none, only comedy.
Wow.
And I petitioned for him. I was like, he auditioned, and he just fucking he's won more awards for it than me, more acting awards than me for it.
Wow. And
he did a great job because there's shit in that story that relates to him in ways that no one else can. So I don't know, you probably see YouTube or Vimeo. It's interesting. It's okay. Of course, we shot it in like one night during COVID with a skeleton crew. So the fact that like anybody has seen it is remarkable. The fact that it's won any awards at all is remarkable.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's, unless you're at Sundance or the real Cannes Film Festival, or or you're nominated for an Oscar, they're not really for the actors; they're for the directors.
Gotcha.
So I hope it gives Joey like a lot of work.
Yeah.
I'll find you. I'll send you a link to it. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, you talked about your podcast, the After Laugh podcast. How much prep do you do, and where do you record? Does it kind of depend where you're out on the road, or?
I record on the road sometimes. Usually, I record in my yard, which is like next to the Laugh Factory, which is why I want to do it. The show is really called After Laugh. Because after shows the Laugh Factory, bring people down, had a fire pit, booze, maybe some weed. We sit down outside my yard and we just do a free form little podcast. I think early on that's kind of what it was. And now it's more just people that I find interesting or I'm friends with, or like I just did this holiday movie, which I'm not going to name because it's garbage. But there's a guy in the movie named Jimmy. And he was on that show Gigolos. So he's like a professional gigolo. And I hit it off with him. I never thought I would hit off with a freaking gigolo. So and he's a really smart guy. I was like, you gotta be my podcast. You gotta come to my podcast. Like, to hear this like really intelligent gigolo talk about like.
I never thought I'd hear those words, intelligent gigolo put together.
But it also makes sense because like he is a high-end gigolo, so he has to go to like events with a suit and not only look good but carry conversations wherever he is. Wow. So an escort, right? He's an escort. He's a male escort, so he can go places, and on some level, high-end places where some fancy society woman can take him. Like, look at your handsome date. They don't know he's a gigolo.
Yeah.
But he knows everything about this. He knows a lot about a lot of things, which is part of his job mandate, is just to be someone who can go into any party and have conversations.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have him on. So you just find people like that, and it's such a remarkable thing because I find so many people have, like I said, Eric Blake stories that you're like, what the? That's crazy. Mm-hmm. I can't believe you've lived that life. A lot of comics could come into it from very weird lives and weird stories. Yeah.
Well, you had Jeremy Piven on yours a while ago, and I enjoyed that episode. You guys talked a little bit about mushrooms, and that had me hooked. Listen to that.
Yeah.
Do you have any?
Jeremy's interesting because he's very buttoned up, very professional guy, but he's all about the psychedelics, man. He just licked a toad like 2 weeks ago. I haven't talked to him about it yet.
Yeah, I think you were talking about like toad vomit or something. You can see the Big Bang happen in front of you.
I've never done the toad, but I'm dying to do the toad.
Yeah.
I would start doing mushrooms I started doing mushrooms 2 years ago. 2.5 years ago, like in COVID. I started mushrooms during COVID.
Oh, okay.
And it answered a lot of questions for me. I mean, basically in the sense that like I felt like I grew up in a very conservative upbringing, and I thought that all these drugs were legal or evil, and
like an awakening.
Particularly LSD, like nothing is more evil than LSD and heroin are basically like on the same page. That's what you're indoctrinated into. You grow up in these government mandated public schools, like the effects of LSD, and everyone's jumping off buildings and killing themselves. And mushrooms are obviously kind of mushrooms and LSD are like cousins of each other, right? They're both derived from fungus. People don't realize about LSD, but it's almost all psychedelics are derived from some form of fungus, right? So I was terrified to start mushrooms, and because what if I have a bad trip? So what if I have a bad trip? And then you realize that like you have to make yourself have a bad trip. If you curate the experience properly, there's no way you're gonna have a bad trip, because mushrooms don't want to give you a bad trip. Mushrooms are like, hey buddy, we want to show you the world.
Yeah. And
I had such great experiences doing it. I started leading people on trips. I started taking like Jack Jr. I don't know if you know Jack Jr., if you've interviewed him at all, but
I
led him on his first trip. I led a couple comics on their first trips.
Wow.
Did
you say Letterman's first trip?
I led them on their first trip.
Oh, okay. I was like, wow.
I'm sure Letterman's tripped before. But so it's just cool because you watch, and I took my best friend on his first trip, like in Hawaii, like a week ago. Oh. And it's just really interesting because you see different ways people respond to what they're feeling, what they're seeing, and it can be a little. I mean, it's not scary because whatever it's just the world, And if the world scares you, you can be there to calm them down, let them know it's okay, and what they're feeling, what they're seeing is okay. And I love doing it. As a matter of fact, someone said, "Hey, can you be a professional mushroom guide?" I would do it. So I read a book called How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan, who did the Omnivore's Dilemma. He started his psychedelic. He became a psychonaut, is the term, in his 60s, and it's really all about like, him going from a very logical, scientific guy, looking at all these psychonauts, going like, oh, these fucking, in my trip, I saw guys like, whatever, you saw God. He's an atheist too. And then basically he did psychedelics. He's like, oh no, yeah, there's God. And that really, because, you hear like what people say, it's all about love. It's just noise and love. That's all there is. And mushrooms and really good psychedelic trip will show you it's really about love. It's really about foster that love. And he said, he's like, it sounds so fucking hokey. And then he did. He was like, yeah, that's it. That's all there is. There's nothing else.
Yeah.
And it changed his life. And it sort of changed my life that way. I mean, I've always been trying to get on a journey of trying to find things less important than I used to. I think that's the process of getting older and heading towards the grave. Just caring less about things that you used to think were really fucking important,
Yeah.
Like being popular, being famous, or being liked by this person, or being like the life of the party, or people thinking you're cool, or people thinking that you get chicks, or whatever the fuck it is. Like all this shit that like it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Do you find joy in the world? Is your head a nice space to live? And are you able to love people? Are you able to support people? Are you able to have fun and give people joy? If not, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Or work towards it, or figure it out. Think about all these people. Like I've never really cared about money, which I probably should, but all these people who just like these lawyers and doctors I talk about, all they care about is their fucking money, making their fucking money, and blah blah blah. And so what?
Yeah.
Where is that going to end up? Stupid.
Probably in the hands of a gigolo.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, do you have any upcoming projects? I know you got some stuff in the works.
Well, yeah. So, I have an episode of NCIS coming out. NCIS is great because I think it's the biggest show in the world right now. I think it's most watched viewed show in America for sure. The other two on HBO is coming out. I have The Wedding season on Hulu right now. I haven't seen it. I don't think it's a big part. I have Mo just got renewed for season 2 on Netflix. So hopefully I'm part of that.
Yeah.
City on a Hill, I'm in the last season of City on a Hill, which just got canceled. So I'm trying to think if I have anything else, like some silly independent films. I'm a co-producer on a Jeremy Piven film called The Performance.
Okay.
About a tap dancing Jew in the Holocaust.
Sounds
Box office gold, baby. It's actually a brilliant film, and he's phenomenal in it. So yeah, so a few things like that, and then now I'm just looking for fucking work.
Nice.
Back in the grind, man.
Well, it was fun to talk to you, get to know you a little bit. It was some great stories. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks, man. Nice talking to you, buddy.